After weathering the worst fortnight of her political career, it appears voters may have forgiven Premier Gladys Berijiklian for her secret romance with disgraced MP Daryl Maguire. In an Ipsos poll conducted last week for 9 News and the Sydney Morning Herald, voters delivered their verdict.
In the days after it was revealed Gladys Berijiklian had been in a long-term relationship with former MP Daryl Maguire, there was no shortage of speculation about whether she would survive. Her decision to ride out the storm would appear from this poll to have been a smart move. Regardless of the love affair, 63% of those polled believe she should stay in office, even though 36% believe she knew a great deal or fair amount about Maguire's alleged corrupt activity.
I deny the proposition that I turned a blind eye. I don't care who it is. I don't care what the circumstances are. The public comes first as far as I'm concerned.
On a general performance, 64% approve of Ms Berijiklian as Premier. Just 22% approve of the performance of Jodie McKay.
You were complicit in his corruption and his misconduct. Why did you not fulfil your legal obligation?
When it comes to preferred Premier, Ms Berijiklian is streets ahead with the support of 58% of all voters. And the worry for Jodie McKay among Labor voters, more prefer Ms Berijiklian as Premier, some 40%, compared to 37% for the Labor leader. But there is some sobering insight for the Premier. 71% believe her reputation has been damaged as a result of her association with Daryl Maguire.
Mark, thank you.
Well, I guess that's the thing, isn't it? So if it doesn't land on that finding of corruption, but it does heavily criticise the Premier, should she stand down?
Oh, I believe she has no choice because if you're Premier and hold the highest office in New South Wales, your integrity has to be absolute. At the moment, there are so many questions arising from what she has known over the last 6 years and what she hasn't disclosed. And of course, the obligation she has to report what she knows. The critical date, Charlotte, is that July 2018, which is when Daryl Maguire appeared before that Canterbury Council ICAC inquiry. At that point, the Premier should have gone to ICAC and said, I know more, because she knew about the Commission, she knew about the developer deals, and she knew about Country Garden. And at that point, she should have disclosed to her colleagues that she was in a relationship with him. Which she didn't. So she's sitting around the cabinet table having conversations about the Badgerys Creek deal, having conversations about what's happening in Western Sydney, and all the while Daryl Maguire is seeking to make $1.5 million to clear his debt so that they could get married.
Well, I guess a lot of it's quite a technical thing, that code of conduct, because the Premier has said that she had a close personal relationship with Maguire. And the ministerial code of conduct stipulates that you have to declare an intimate personal relationship. There does seem to be some grey area there. Do you think that there needs to be reform on that ministerial code of conduct?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it'll be interesting. I mean, Gladys Berijiklian has tried to, I've said use weasel words around that. The fact is that she told ICAC it was a relationship of no significant status. But then over that weekend, of course, we saw her say that she wanted to marry him and she was in love with him. Yeah. And during the week, you heard all that discussion around whether she did or didn't have, or whether he did or did not have a key to her house. So, yeah, that is the point of contention. You're right. And I think that out of this, there does need to be some greater clarification in the ministerial code of conduct, which we can do as a parliament by just making an amendment, because it does sit under that ICAC legislation. So I think that's quite possible, because MPs shouldn't be able to, worm their way out of it, slide their way out of that. The fact is that she'd been in a relationship with him for 6 years. And she did have a responsibility to disclose that relationship. Yeah,
it's certainly that the technicalities surrounding that, it seems quite ambiguous to understand what exactly the status of their relationship was.
My argument has always been that the Premier and me as opposition leader have a responsibility to uphold the highest standards. And whichever way you look at this, the standards have been compromised. And if we accept this, then we accept an impossibly low standard of government. And if we accept this, then politics forever in New South Wales is diminished, and we can never go back to that. I mean, Barry O'Farrell resigned over a bottle of wine. The actions of this Premier are so much greater than that.
Yeah.
Another piece of evidence that came out, Charlotte, which is relevant, is that the Premier's former Chief of Staff, Sarah Cruikshank, gave evidence, and she said that in that grant allocation, so the Premier also has a $2.5 million discretionary grant. Darryl Maguire, out of that, received $40,000, 6 grants totaling $40,000, which went directly to his electorate, which benefited him. And no one's questioning the validity or the worthwhileness of those grants. But the fact is, she should have disclosed the relationship in signing off those grants. And the former Chief of Staff declared that she didn't, and the former Chief of Staff declared that she believes she should have.
Yeah, and that is, I guess, that grey area that we're talking about again, that she's defining a relationship as something else. It's been a wild few months for the New South Wales government, and it is causing massive issues for the government. There is no doubt about that. And you've said multiple times that this isn't a popularity contest, but there is no doubt that Gladys Berijiklian has the public support in spades from her Liberal Party colleagues. Who do you think would have done a better job leading New South Wales through the bushfires and the COVID recovery? Because that's essentially what we're looking at, an alternative now.
Yeah, look, I can't land on, I can't comment on where the Liberal Party lands. I'm just... I'm really disappointed that there is not a greater effort by the Liberal Party to clean up New South Wales politics and make it the best it could be. I mean, I was elected by the members of the Labor Party on a platform of integrity and cleaning up our party, which has gone through really difficult times. I don't want to see anyone or any party go back to those really bad days of New South Wales politics. But if we accept this, then anything is possible in New South Wales, not just because she's a minister and a leader of a minister, but because she is the leader of the party and the Premier. And there has to be no grey in what she is required to do and not do. And as I said, the ICAC Act is pretty clear. It's around a suspicion of misconduct, a suspicion of corruption. When Gladys Berijiklian, those phone calls we've heard were all before that July 2018 phone call where we knew that Darryl Maguire had behaved inappropriately. Now, ICAC, he had to resign, but all those conversations, we now know, the Premier had a similar conversation with him. She knew about the deal, she knew about the commission, she knew about Country Garden, she knew he was trying to clear debts, she knew he was involved with developers. I mean, with the commission, she even congratulated him on that. So, the evidence is pretty obvious. And for me, I've said she's a hard worker. I said that I feel that she's gone through a relationship breakup, but she is the Premier of New South Wales and she has to set the highest standard.
Yes.
But I just have to say I cannot let this go because it just takes us back to the bad old days. And I said to someone, I was in the lift with someone from the Liberal Party during the week, a really, respected minister, and I said to him, I still feel like I'm in a parallel universe because I look across at her every day, Charlotte, when I ask her questions, and I've always seen a person who believes in integrity in politics. I've seen a really hard worker and I've seen a decent person, but I don't know Gladys Berijiklian anymore. What has been uncovered is deeply concerning. And, I put this out on Twitter. I just said, I don't respect her anymore. I don't know the person I'm looking at. And that Liberal MP, that Liberal minister agreed with me. So there is uncertainty within the Liberal Party, but, I think there's a lot of discussion about who could and who would replace her. I think she'll never lead the Liberal Party to the next election. It's just a matter of time before she goes.